Good evening, good evening, good evening, everybody. What's going on? It's good to see you. It's Monday evening, Mindset Monday. I brought a rock star on with me this evening. You guys know him and love him. Mr. Al Kieran came on. He's been deeply invested in our book this month, Give and Take by Adam Grant. And he said that he was willing to come on and give some of his tips that he's been taking away. We'll have a little bit of a conversation, but as always, I already see people in the chat letting us know where you're watching from. I am, as always, out on the East Coast here in Pennsylvania. Al has got the West Coast covered. He's over on the West Coast. I see California, Minnesota, and Kansas, and Texas. It's so good to see all of you. Appreciate you taking some time out of your evening to hang with us. We're going to be covering chapters 5 and 6 of Give and Take by Adam Grant. And like I've been telling you guys on the last few calls, make sure, number one, you're always on the call, because I think it was, what was it, a couple Mondays ago, I gave away a couple skincare sets for free. I think we did a little fun giveaway. I was on that one. You never know, I'm going to give some fun stuff away. And number two is you don't have to be reading the book to be able to take some of the nuggets away. I think that's kind of the beauty of being part of a book club for those that are having a busy life, for those that are in the middle of it, that are saying, you know, I don't have time to be reading a book right now, but man, I would love an abridged version. I would love the ability to be able to pull some of the nuggets out of some of these great books. And so just appreciate you being here. And again, take this next minute while we're getting started. I'm going to let Al say hi in a second here. But take this next minute and make sure you send out a couple messages to your team and say, hey, Mindset Monday's going on. You should hop on and hang out with us. We're going to be talking about the power of powerless communication and the art of motivation maintenance. So really how to keep your organization and your network human and how not to get burnt out, I think is the quoted abridged versions of what they're trying to say. And so glad that you guys are getting value from this. And next week we'll be kind of finalizing, really taking the last 3 chapters, going through all those, and then announcing our next book. And so make sure, don't drop it in the comments here, because I rarely get to see all of them. But if you have a good idea for a book that you would like to, that maybe you've read recently, one thing that I like to do is stay a little bit fresher. I think that a lot of us have read some of the legendary books, some of the greats, you know, Who Moved My Cheese and all these. But what I like to find is I'm constantly a student of new personal development authors. So I'm always looking, you know, like Ryan Holiday is one of my favorites. Adam Grant is another favorite. There's so many great, you know, Simon Sinek, oh my gosh, I can go on and on. But all I'd say is keep your eyes out. And if you guys see one that made a big impact in your life, please do me a favor, shoot it over to my email, tworre@thehappyco.com, TWORRE @thehappyco.com, and let me know what you think. But Al, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, man. It's it's interesting reading the book, because there's a lot of things, because I've been in the industry such a long time. There's some things that sort of slap you in the face and say, man, I've got off track here, you know, and I need to pull that back. So it's basically very refreshing, and it's also I'm learning some new stuff, so it's great.
I love it. I love it. Well, I want to keep this call tight, and I want to respect everyone's time. We will be off here in the next 30 minutes. But there is a couple, I mean, all of these chapters are deep, and Adam goes into such great stories to really showcasing how each one of these ideals really finds its place in fact. It's not just a thought. It's not just, you know. And so chapter 5 is the power of powerless communication. And, you know, Al, I'm going to let you share your thoughts on this. But what I took from this, again, was the human side of building a business. Not always having to be perfect. And some of the things I want to touch on are the power of asking questions, the skill of not being perfect, and the art of knowing your audience. But Al, why don't you touch on a few things that you took from chapter 5?
Well, one thing is I've always been a big fan of laugh at yourself. Others are. You might as well join the crowd. And it fits right into this chapter so well. And I always tell people, wear your heart on your sleeve. Don't be afraid. I mean, what you did, Taylor, a few weeks ago, where you got super transparent and you just laid your heart out about what was going on in your mind. That hurts, but as soon as you do that, the people that are listening, they listen to your heart, not to your words. And I mean, and they get it. And so I think that was a really good thing I got out of the chapter. I think another thing that happens for me is I think so many times we're motivated to hit a rank or whatever else. And one of the things that I have really got is, man, don't worry about getting the credit. In network marketing, I hate to say it, we become legends in our own mind sometimes. And then we find out, gosh, we're just human beings and we're going to fail. And sometimes it's sort of embarrassing to even think that you thought that much of yourself. Here's what I do know, Taylor. If you give the credit away and you give it all the time, and I've got people in my business, I mean, it's all about them. I get that. I do. I get it. I've been there. I wore that t-shirt. All right. But I'll tell you something, it's not satisfying, because if in network marketing, Taylor, in my opinion, as you succeed in the business, as you grow, as you take other people to the top with you, the gratification is not going to be about where you end up. It's going to be about the journey. And if the journey's not good, if the journey's not fun, and if it's not fulfilling, then the reality is that when you get the prize, it won't be either. It'll be worse. Okay.
Well, that's what I agree. I think that's what happens for so many people, right? I mean, with anything in life, whatever it is you're striving for, if it is of material value and you're getting it through a taker's mentality, I don't believe that there's anything that you can achieve in this life that's going to feel anywhere near what you want it to feel. I mean, how many videos do you need to watch of the guy that made $1 million and said, I got it, or $100 million and said, and got it and said it didn't? I was miserable. I was sad. I was lonely. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And again, to say that to the single mom that's struggling to pay her bills, that you get the read between the lines kind of them. I understand that there's a difference between, give me 100 million and I'd be just fine. I wouldn't be sad at all. But there is a mindset behind again, I like what you said, just the art of not being perfect. And that's what I wanted to talk about for a second, is the human side. For a long time in this business, I have watched people try to be perfect. I've watched people try to get their pitch down perfect. I've watched them try to be able to have every objection for every question or every negative thing someone could throw at you. I've just watched people try to attain this level of perfection within their pitch, within their style. And I love chapter 5 because he really shows you factually and statistically that those people are not the most successful. The most polished people are not the most successful people.
Well, as a matter of fact, they actually create a doubt. They create suspicion about, and then the other thing comes into play, Taylor, and we know this about duplication. If you're perfect, man, you're not going to have too many followers that are going to be perfect.
Exactly.
I mean, so that's crazy.
Exactly. And so I think that's really important. The other thing I wanted the power of asking questions, and we touch on this a lot, but the power of powerless communication really circles back to example after example. I love the idea of, do you plan to vote in this upcoming election? He says, by asking someone that question, Al, do you plan to vote in the upcoming election? Absolutely. Al's chance of voting goes up 41% just by me asking him that one question. Now, if I was to ask Al, who are you voting for? It's a very different, you get a very different, that's kind of a taker's question. But a giver's question is, do you plan to vote in the upcoming election? It's a very open, it just opens the door for him to start thinking. The same way when we talk about in our businesses, if you ever thought about having a home-based business, have you ever thought about working for yourself before? and let them chew on that, let them marinate on that instead of telling them how amazing they would be and how much they would crush it and how much they were born for this and how much it's in their blood and they're going to be quitting their job and what a crap job it is in the first place. I think that it's really, really powerful to ask some of these questions. And I talk about it in just about every training call I do is ask more, talk less. And in that vein, you're going to find yourself with your network providing you with the problems that you get to offer the solution for instead of you trying to assume the problem that your network is dealing with. Does that make sense? Put a 3 in the comments if that makes sense.
You know, one of the things, Taylor, that I learned over, I guess I learned pretty quickly about it, is that I learned that the better the listener I am, the more successful I am. Okay. And here's the other thing. When I'm talking with them on a Zoom, or if I'm talking with them on a phone call, or if I'm doing it in person or whatever else, the one thing I do, I put all the distractions away. I mean, all of them. I don't have my phone on unless I know there's some sort of health emergency for my family. And I will tell them that right up front. I'm going to keep it on in case my wife calls or my kids call or something like that. But I do not have any distraction going on because everything out of their mouth is the key to seeing if they're going to want to be in my business, if they're going to want to have an answer to the challenges they have health-wise. But I won't know that unless I'm listening with my head, my heart, my soul.
Exactly. And that's where it comes down to the art of knowing your audience. And you can't know your audience unless you ask the questions. It's very, I mean, again, come back to the basics of, Al, have you ever thought about working for yourself? Have you ever thought about having a home-based business? Now it goes, I would never in a million years do something like that. I will retire at 65. I'm going to be done. See you later. I'm enjoying my 401k. I'm the last generation to get it. So I'm going to enjoy it. You know what? See ya. No, I'm not going to do a home-based business. You go, oh, okay. Check them off the list. Instead of going, Al, I've got something to show you, and I think it's right up your alley. Ask some questions. If Al comes back and he goes, you know what? I've actually thought about that a lot over the years. I've actually thought a lot about what it would be like to work for myself. I just don't know how I'd ever do it. You know, I've thought about it, but didn't, never really had the opportunity. It always seemed like it was going to be too much legwork. But, the idea of working for myself, yeah, it's a fun. Then you go, well, what if I had something to show you? What if I could show you a way?
Right.
You see, it's just asking the questions that opens the door for them to start chewing on their own dreams, to chewing on their own ambitions and goals. I really want to circle back to the skill of not being perfect. And I think that this is so important for the majority of people that even if you've been in this business for a while, I think that a lot of, for the new people, it's especially important because I think you're getting in and I think that you might watch an opportunity presentation or you might see a Thursday opportunity Zoom and you might see someone come on and be super polished and super programmed when it comes to how they're talking, and they might be able to say things that you couldn't say as smoothly. I want you to understand that the power in that authenticity. Al, what are you thinking?
Yeah, well, 3 weeks ago, you and I did one on Thursday night. Okay. Yep. And I gotta be honest with you, I sucked. I did. It was just, I was there, but a lot of the stuff that I know I didn't come across right now, like I said, and I was laughing at myself later on because Taylor, you do an awesome job. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But it was sort of funny because when I was reading this, I think, well, I was good this way. I was duplicatable. So
see, but that's and you weren't horrible, and you beat yourself up. I think we are our own worst critics by far. But what I will say is this, that the one thing I love most about network marketing is that all it takes is a hunger for something more in your life, a willingness to be coachable, and the ability to stay consistent. That is it. That's what I love about this. It's not, there is no big cost of entry. There is no get you gotchas. There is no, if you don't perform, you get kicked out. There's none of that. I love the fact that this is as authentic as it could possibly be. But again, I think we sometimes try to make it less than in an effort to make it look more professional. Like if I'm more postured, if I'm more whatever. I mean, you guys hear me. I mean, yes, I can, but I stutter all the time. I think I sit here and I think about my stuff. I'm not some robot that's spewing out Tony Robbins speeches all day long at you guys. I mean, the reality is I study for this the same way that you guys are, hopefully. I'm sitting here taking my notes every single week, the same way I'm hoping you guys are, in an effort to grow myself. This is not Taylor's, here to teach you. This is Taylor's here to grow with you. And so, Al, any final thoughts on chapter 5 before we move on to chapter 6?
One of the things I wrote down is, I don't know if anybody's gone to YouTube and watched Herding Cats. Okay, but you should watch it. It's hilarious. Okay. We don't have authority. We're in relationship marketing. All we can do is help people. We can't be a dictator. And I've got people that try and be dictators. They don't last long. I've got people that are strong in what they do. And I always tell them, I said, listen, if you're really strong in what you're doing, lead by example. And then the ones that will run with you, hallelujah. But the key thing that I got out of here is seek advice. And I'm going to tell you something. I ran through a slump where all of a sudden I had 3 or 4 people in a row say no or hell no or whatever it was. Okay. And finally I got, and I said, what? I know you're not getting in. Okay. So we'll take that off the table here. What should have I been asking you in order to get you to where you would want to be my brand partner, my business partner? And then they'll start talking about things that they wanted to know I hadn't even thought about. So, I mean, it's crazy sometimes. And by the way, some of those, 1 or 2 of them came in, so it's crazy how that works like that. Don't be afraid. Be vulnerable. That's it. Just be vulnerable.
Well, that comes back to what I say all the time. I think all of us do is what I've been focusing on for a lot of you out there that we've been working together is plan, do, review, right? You plan something out, you go do it, and then you review it. I have a daily plan, do, review. I have a weekly plan, do, review. I have a monthly plan, do, review. I have a quarterly plan, do, review. And I have a yearly plan, do, review for my life. I mean, think about your day today. I want you to consciously, this is Mindset Monday, ladies and gentlemen. I want you to think about your day today. Plan, do, review your day right now. What did you do today? What could you have done a little bit better? Where were some areas in which you could improve upon tomorrow? Because one thing that I don't like, and I have been caught in this trap in a season of my life, is there are seasons of your life where you can stick 7 to 10 years together into 1 year, and it's just the same day for just 7 years. It's just repeat. You're just on a loop. You're just a record, just going around and around and around. You get up, you do the same stuff. You go to bed, you get up. There's no growth. There's no development. There's no acknowledgement of areas in which you could be better. And again, none of us are perfect. We're all looking to get better every single day. That's what I would challenge you. Go ahead, Al.
There's no excitement.
No, exactly.
You've got it. And we're going to go into the next chapter in a second, but if you're having burnout and you're on that hamster, or you're on the treadmill, okay, get off it. Break it down so that you have some things that you're doing that are fun. You got some time out. You got your family things that are organized, whatever else, your spiritual beliefs. Do yourself a favor. Realize that you can burn out in this business. You can. All right. But what you got to do is decide, it's just like when I got this one gal, whenever she comes on, I tell her, you got to smile. Okay. That's part of the program. You got to smile. And here's what I'm announcing. So when you're on the phone, if you're not smiling, they can feel it.
Yep.
Okay. And if you're obviously on a Zoom, they can see you. And you gotta remember, man, you're there to help them have a better life. The last thing they want is for you to dump on them. That's the last thing, or to be down in the mouth about whatever's going on in your life. Because hey, we will all have ups and downs. There's no doubt about that.
That's the biggest thing is a beautiful acceptance that we are flawed. A beautiful acceptance. It's just a beautiful acceptance to say that like every day I'm looking to get a little bit better than I was yesterday. Every single day, I have the opportunity to grow every day. And it doesn't have to be this giant transformational, I went to Tony Robbins and came back a different human being. It doesn't need to be some big aha light bulb moment, my whole life changed. Little things.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that, what is that army guy who wrote the book? You want to start off having a good day, you start off by making your bed. Because if you start off by making your bed, then you're most likely going to go do the next thing. And it's like the next thing. So it's just all about starting with little patterns, little wins. So I want to remind you, go do a plan, do review this evening on your day today. With your income producing activity hours, were you as diligent as you should have been? Could you have been a little bit better? Maybe tomorrow you have a conversation and let your family know, hey, these hours are really important to me. These are sacred. So I'd appreciate if you guys didn't bother me during this time. It's only going to be an hour. Mom or dad is going to be in the office making phone calls. As soon as I'm done, we're going to go outside and play. But if you don't bother me, we'll go get ice cream, whatever it might be. And so how could you have done a little bit better? And I think that, again, this is something I do every day in my life, every week, every month, every quarter, every year, in an effort to be consistently growing. And so all I want for you guys is the same thing, is to find a way that you can be consistently growing on the personal development side of things so that you can almost fall back on the perfection side of things in your business and fall into the human. And so I hope you guys got some value. Al, I know I definitely got some value from you, brother. I appreciate you being on here. And let's jump into chapter 6 here and talk about this for just a few minutes. I really think this one is awesome. The art of motivation maintenance. The art of motivation maintenance for me really talks about finding ways to not burn out. Finding ways to not get burnt out. In this chapter, they go over, takers, but then multiple different categories of givers. So they have the selfless giver and they have the otherish giver. If you've read this chapter, we'll talk about it in a minute, but the selfless giver and the otherish giver. So the selfless giver, takers are going to be takers, as you see this in the book. First time, motivation maintenance, right? Isn't that a great concept, motivation maintenance, Carol? So the concept really comes down to successful givers still have serious self-interest. This was what I was able to pull, because when they show you the scale, which is very, very interesting. If you are reading this book, you've seen this. When you're looking at the pay scale of givers and takers and matchers and all that stuff that they break down, they found out that if this is the pay scale here, that right in the middle is where you find most takers. Down here, you find givers, but also up here. So givers find themselves on the top and bottom of the pay scale, with takers finding themselves in the middle. Isn't that interesting? That givers find themselves on the top and the bottom. So I love that Adam Grant breaks down what is it that makes a giver on the bottom. And he goes into a selfless giver. So a selfless giver is someone that is going to find burnout, trying to help so much that it hurts you. When you are giving so much that it hurts you, We've all been guilty of this. Put a 5 in the comments if you've been guilty of this in the past. I've been guilty of this in the past. Everyone's been guilty of this in the past. You're wanting to help so much that it hurts you.
Well, and here's the thing, when it hurts you, Taylor, what amounts is you're no longer given the high quality giving that you want to, because you no longer have the exuberance, the energy, the stuff that goes on that's magical in our business. You no longer have that. It's burned out. Here's the thing. I know that a lot of times people, when they're on a run, okay, they're going for a rank, they'll run. But you know what? You better put something on the calendar that goes ahead and gives your family something to look forward. And it's not 2 years from now, 3 years from now. It's next week. And I know that Jan one time basically said she wanted to talk with me, and my wife of 43 years, so I can share this. Great lady. And she says, I want to talk to you. And I said, this ought to be good, because it was one of those kind of talks where I wasn't going to do much talking. I was going to do a lot of listening. And she just said, hey, listen, we need to spend more time together. And so we started having a date night one time a week. And I won't go through the whole story. That'd be another 20 minutes. Okay. But what happens, we started having date night, then we'd have date day, and then we'd have a date weekend occasionally. And what amounts, we got it on the schedule. And so for most of the time when our kids were growing up, we were having that, and our kids realized that that was important to have as a couple. Okay. And I think a lot of times what amounts is, guys, you don't put it on the calendar. And so you don't put it on the calendar, is evidently it's not important, because you put all the other stuff on the calendar. You'll put working out on a calendar. You'll go ahead and say, I got this going on. So I think what it comes right down to, we got to be smart about our giving. Okay. And yeah, we can give a lot because we got a huge capacity to love. We can give a lot, but what we have to do is be smart enough to know that we have to restrict enough to go ahead and recharge. Because if we don't recharge, it's not gonna work for you.
Yeah. See, so what I love that Adam, I agree with that. What Adam calls that is otherish givers. So what Adam says, so givers are givers, right? They're always going to be willing to give more than they get, which is, I think, most of you on this call. Maybe some of you are matchers, but I don't think we have very many takers here at the Happy Call. All that to say is, otherish givers are willing to give more than they receive, but they are selective with whom they give it and when. So that's very, very important. This is what allows them motivational maintenance. This is what allows people like myself the ability to go at such a high rate for so long consistently without ever getting that burnout phase of, oh my gosh, Taylor's going to get burned out. I am very selective with my giving. I'm very selective. My giving is my time. Your giving is your time. And predominantly, your giving is your time with your existing organization that is taking you away from building a bigger organization of prospecting, networking, doing all the things you need to be doing to continue to expand your network. But it's almost like they're opening the door for you to slack off a little bit, and you're taking that open door. It's like they're calling and saying, hey, I need some coaching, I need some training, I need to know what to do next. And because you don't want to make the prospecting calls, you go, I got an hour, so let's chat about it. Let's sit down and let's talk about it. Let's talk about how we get you to the next level. When you know that there's 25 videos out there that you've already done, or someone in your upline has already done on how to get started, it's completely unnecessary for you to go through all that. And if anything, you're giving them a bunch of fish, hoping that they're going to go out and learn how to fish on their own when they're not. We all have heard the analogy before. And so again, I really want to get back to this selfless givers are trying to help so much that it's hurting you. We talked about this last week. We talked 2 weeks ago, potential is cheap, ladies and gentlemen. Potential is cheap. Everyone's got it. Every human being on this planet has potential. It's what you do with that potential that matters. And so that's where, as otherish givers, you have to be selective with your time. You have to be selective when and where you are giving it. And I completely agree with Al that if you are not time management will be a call for another day, but I think that that's very important to be setting boundaries throughout your entire life. They can be floating boundaries and they can be ever changing and ever moving boundaries. But if you've got certain amount of hours or certain amount of time that you're putting towards this business a week, that needs to be as sacred as your work hours. Say you don't fire yourself. I mean, what you guys got to ask yourself is if this was a job and you were reporting to a boss and all the goals that you set out, you said you were going to follow, would you still be employed right now? I think that the part of entrepreneurship is the fact that we jump off the cliff and build our wings on the way down. And yes, it's scary, but guess what the flip side is? We get to fly while everyone else sits on the cliff and watches. Mm-hmm. But it is a risk. It's not employment. There is no, and then the flip side is no one's going to fire you. No one's going to get rid of you. No one's going to kick you out, which allows you the opportunity to kick the tires and allow the laziness, allow the excuses to pour in because can't get kicked out. No one's gonna, can't slap your hand. They can't kick you off the calls. They can't, take your check away. So that's where entrepreneurship becomes a this thing and a this thing. Al, what are your thoughts?
Well, just one thing here that I'd like to leave because I know we're getting close to the time frame and all that. Tonight, before you go to bed, if you called up someone that's not in your business, that has helped you in your life, and you just said, thank you. I want to thank you for it. The feeling you'll have is so good. And to be honest with you, that's the feeling you got to have whenever you're talking to a prospect. Anytime you're talking to a brand partner, you got that excitement of knowing that you're making a difference in their life and you uplifted them.
I talk about this a lot. I'm writing a book about this, actually. I mean, this is something I'm so passionate about. It will be the topic of my first book. But the reality is I ask this question all the time, and we'll close with this. But this is just, you probably have heard me talk about it, but it's a good thought to leave with this evening. Why is it? Why is it that the people that we love most on this planet, people that you love more than anyone, why is it that we will wait until the day after they are no longer here to say the most beautiful things about them that they have ever heard said about themselves, and they're not here to have them said? Why? It's such a fallacy to me, and it never made sense. I've attended some funerals recently and in the past, and it never made sense to me that I heard things being said about people that they never got to hear those things. So I made a decision. This is something I did a few years ago. If you've been on training calls with me, you've heard me talk about this. Put a 5 in the comments if you've heard me talk about this before. But what I did is I made a list of every single one of my family members that matters most to me in this world, every single one of them. And for a calendar year, every month, I called, there was 100 of them. I have a very large family. I called every single one of them for a year straight, every month, with the sole intention of just telling them how much I love them, how much they mattered to me, how proud I was of them, how grateful I was that they were in my life, that I was to be in theirs, that I was grateful enough to be in theirs, and that I wish nothing but the best for them, and I hope they have a beautiful rest of the day. And then I would get off the phone. Do you know why I'd get off the phone? Very important why I'd get off the phone. Because if you stay on the phone for a long time, they will do what everyone does, and they will look to reciprocate. They will look to tell you, and that's not why you called them. You didn't call them to hear a bunch of nice things being said about you, which is what, and so it's very simple to say, you know what, that's all I was calling to tell you. I got to run, but I just want to tell you, I love you. And I wish you a beautiful evening, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Get off the phone.
You know what's interesting, Taylor, is Bob Proctor, a good friend of mine, passed about 6 months ago. And the interesting part about Bob, think about this. He never let any negative I'd start to come up with some negatives. Not interested.
Yep.
Don't have time for it. But his question always to me is, what can I do for you? How can I help you? That's it. I mean, and I mean, he impacted tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands or millions of people. And bottom line, the reason he did is because he was a giver, but with boundaries.
Yes, an otherish giver. He knew when and where to give that gift. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you got some value out of this evening's call. I know I sure did. As always, from all of you on the call, from you, Al, I appreciate you being here, brother. I hope you have a beautiful and abundant, blessed rest of your evening. I hope you decide to go call someone. I hope you decide to make their evening special, and then in turn, fill your heart with joy and make your evening special as well. I hope you do review your day today. I hope you plan to take a little bit of time to look over this day and maybe make some notes on how you might be able to improve just a little bit from today on tomorrow. With that, again, God bless each and every one of you. Al, thank you again so much for being here. We'll see you on the calls later this week.
Take care. Bye now.